last previews with the uncommon Planeswalkers and the last few cards in the next video. I'll be reviewing the cards in the grading system of S, A, B, C, D, and F. The first letter will be for pre-release and the second letter will be for draft. Go ahead and check out the last video where I review the first cards that were released for War of the Spark. Please consider subscribing so I can release more content to you guys, and if you find this information helpful. Rescuer Sphinx. Now this card is going to be fantastic in pre-release because you can bounce a Planeswalker that can no longer use its minus abilities. This card is still good even if you're not all in on the Planeswalker strategy. Challenging Troll. Now this is a strong bomb that makes your other bombs stronger by giving them reverse menace, which has always been really good in limited. This is a card that's also relatively cheap to cast as a bomb. Cyclops Electromancer. This card does not have very good stats for 5 mana, and you'll probably be killing something with 2 toughness at the very best. You're honestly better off playing a 5/5 vanilla. Evolution Sage. Now this card is good whether you're in a mass or Planeswalker strategy. You'll be able to trigger its ability a lot because it's basically a landfall ability. This means that drawing land late game is actually somewhat tolerable. Devouring Helion. How do you pronounce that? Now this card is pretty decent because you can get rid of a Planeswalker that can no longer use its minus abilities, a creature that's too weak in the late game, or a creature that has been enchanted that can't do anything. If it had Trample, it would be an A card. Aid the Fallen. Now in pre-release, you'll be able to use both modes pretty comfortably. In draft, you might only use the creature portion, so it gets just a little bit weaker there. Banehound. Now this card is okay. If you get it out turn 1, it'll do some damage, and it might even get some damage for turn 2, but any other turn, it's basically a bad blocker and just kind of sits there. Grateful Apparition. Now flyers, even weak flyers, are always welcome in the limited environment. This card has a powerful ability that you can trigger, and it goes really well in a Planeswalker or even in a mass deck. Blind Blast. Now 3 mana to do 1 damage is not a very good card. Replacing itself really doesn't matter for 3 mana at that point. Band Together. Now keep in mind, your 2 creatures aren't fighting the one target that you're focusing on. This means you can still maintain your board and still attack if you want to. The instant speed of this card just makes it even better. Bulwark Giant. Now the stats on this card will make it so that you can block a lot of things, and the ability is fine at best. Stealth Mission. Now this is a pretty good pump ability and is a good way to end the game if you really need to. If you can put this spell on a creature that is already unblockable or a creature that has hexproof, then you're in a really good spot. Bloom Hulk. Now this card will definitely help you with all the Planeswalker you're probably going to play at pre-release. If you're not really all in on the counter strategy though, then it's just really a vanilla card. Defiant Strike. It's not a strong combat trick, but it replaces itself, so If you can find a stronger 2 mana combat trick, play that instead. Goblin Assailant. Now this card is a vanilla card, so play it as a last resort, but you can still play it. Courage in Crisis. Now read this as basically put 2 manas on a creature and then proliferate, which is pretty good. The only problem is that it's sorcery speed, so it gives all the information to your opponent and you might tap out on mana. Loxodon Sergeant. This creature allows you to do some serious damage and still defend with all your creatures. Goblin Assault Team. This creature can hit very hard if your opponent has an empty board, and it leaves a bit of a complimentary gift when it dies, so it's okay all around. But because it is a 4-drop, chances are your opponents will have something to block it, so it's basically a suicide creature, but that's not the worst thing by itself either. Makeshift Battalion. This card's ability is super strong, but by turn 4, which is the turn it can attack by the way, it can probably be blocked pretty decently, and it's not going to survive most likely. Spellkeeper Weird. What a weird name. The stats on this card allow you to block decently, but you'll probably not really use its effect that much in a limited environment, so think of a more offensive and stronger card to play. So Gorger Weird. Another weird card, I guess. This creature is a little bit stronger than its brethren counterpart because it can potentially get bigger permanently. But in all honesty, you probably want a creature that has a better triggered ability. Pollen Bright Druid. Now getting to choose is always a welcome thing in a limited environment. Both choices are actually pretty good no matter what kind of circumstance you're in. If it was a 2/2, it would be an A card and maybe even an S level card. Pouncing Lynx. The offense ability of this card is fantastic and it's an early drop, so you could really be swinging with this card for a lot of turns. It can even kill 3-drop with 2 toughness, so play as many as you can. Heartfire. I think this card is actually a lot better than it looks. You can get rid of a Planeswalker that can no longer use its minus abilities, a creature that is too weak, or again, a creature that's just kind of sitting there. You have plenty of opportunities to use this card in pre-release because you'll probably be finding a lot of minus Planeswalkers. Primordial Worm. It's a vanilla card that's a little bit better than a vanilla card. If you have better bombs, play them. But if you don't, play this card. Soren's Thirst. This removal spell is actually a pretty good removal spell, but the specific double black color requirement is what's keeping me from making it an A card. Ward Scale Crocodile. Hexproof creatures are always really good in a limited environment, even if their toughness is kind of so-so. Remember all the unblockable spells that were mentioned earlier? Yeah, play it on this guy and you'll definitely be in a really solid position to just win the game. War Screecher. An early drop flyer that gets better in the late game? Yeah, this card is really solid in white. If you have multiple copies, I would suggest playing as many of them because this is going to be a #1 target for removal spells. At least, I think so. Mayhem Devil. Now, there are a couple cards that allow you to sacrifice, but you might not find the right synergy for them in pre-release. So treat it as a 3/3 vanilla in that case. In draft, however, you can build around this card a little bit, but I wouldn't really make it the sole center of your deck. Merfolk Skydiver. It's a great early drop, it's a flyer, so that's always welcome. And it has a powerful late game ability, so being flooded with this card isn't the worst thing in the world. The color requirements on this card is what's making it an A card as opposed to an S card. Neoform. This is a decent card that can help you find better creatures, but it's really color restrictive. This card's a lot better in pre-release because you'll be pulling more bombs to play and find. 10th District Legionnaire. This card has a buttload of abilities on one card, and scrying in Boros colors is really welcome in those colors. Again, because it's in Boros colors, it's an A card as opposed to an S card because you're kind of forced to go in a specific color requirement. Eternal Skylord. Now, at the very worst, this is a 3/3 that creates a 2/2 flyer. Now, if you're all in on a mass, this helps your tokens get a lot better. Sunblade Angel. There is a ton of keywords on a single card, which seems good on paper, but it's actually kind of fragile. With that said, it's not the best 6-drop slot for your bomb creature, but it's certainly not the worst either. Demolish. Listen, land destruction cards have never been that good in limited. This one is also sorcery speed, so it's really bad. So just don't play it. Listen, I give this a Z rating if I'm allowed to. Actually, I'm allowed to. It's my video. Yeah, make it a Z card. Forced Landing. Now this is a good sideboard card. Sideboard card. Do not main board this. Again, it's a good sideboard card if your opponent is running a lot of flyers. Again, that's why we put it in the sideboard, because if your opponent's not running flyers, then this card is dead to you. Putting a flyer at the bottom is actually a really nice position to be in because they can't reoccur it from the graveyard. Shriek Diver. Now, this is a flyer that's kind of meh, to be quite honest. It's got decent stats for a 3-drop, and if you draw it turn 4, you can swing with it right away, but again, it's still super fragile. Steady Aim. Not the best combat trick, but it's okay to play if your opponent's playing a lot of flyers. It's a sideboard card. Sideboard. Honestly, you're better off playing Forced Landing if your opponent is playing a lot of flyers. Turret Ogre. This card has the stats to block a lot of flyers in limited, so it really does make it main board worthy. Doing 2 damage is somewhat insignificant, but it's a nice way to catch your opponent off guard for the win if you're in that weird position. God Pharaoh Statue. Honestly, I'd rather play a vanilla bomb than this card because you want to be having a good board presence. By turn 6, your opponent will probably have enough mana to pay for a lot of this stuff anyway, so it's not that good as it looks. Iron Bully. Really? Bully? That's the card name? I feel like they could have done better with that one. Now, it's not difficult to block a 1/1 menace or even a 2/2 menace by turn 3, so this card's not that super great, but if you can abuse the Proliferate ability and build around that in draft, this card can actually be a pretty good force to be reckoned with. Bolt Bend. This is a nice trick to have up on you and to make a kill spell or a combat trick work in your favor rather than the opponent's favor. You probably won't be able to cast it for a cheaper cost, but still a pretty good card. Tasmina's Transmutation. Now, it's a decent removal spell, quote unquote, but there are some things that allow you to sacrifice creatures, so it's not as good as it looks, but since it's an early drop, you can still play it. Rouse Outburst. You can kill a lot of decent creatures with this card, and you can set up your next turn pretty well. Interplanar Beacon. You'll have plenty of opportunities to make use of this card in pre-release because you'll be pulling plenty of Planeswalkers. In draft, you might not go the whole Planeswalker route, or you might not get as many as the pre-release, so it gets weaker there. Chandra's Triumph. This removal spell has a lot of versatility, and it's worth playing even if you don't have a Chandra's Planeswalker, which you can assume that you're probably not going to get, by the way. It's a good removal spell, so I would play as many as you get. Vizier of the Scorpion. This creature is only good in an amass deck, so do not force this card in pre-release. In draft, however, it'll do a lot of wonders, so go for it. Rally of Wings. Now, this isn't really a combat trick, and you might find some use for it if you draft a lot of flyers, but even then it's bleh. Chandra's Pyrohelix. It's not the best removal spell, but it has some versatility, so it's okay. Play it only if you don't have any other removal spell going for you. Jaya's Greeting. Well, hello there. This is a premium removal spell. You'll be able to remove a lot of threats, and setting up your next turn with Scry is just extra spicy. This removal spell is better than some uncommon removal spells. Saheeli's Silverwing. It's a decent flying creature, but looking at your opponent's next card doesn't mean you necessarily have the tools to stop that card. You might also look at a land and then get no information. Law Rune Enforcer. This creature will allow you to stall the game and help you find your win condition, so do not be shy to play multiple copies. Emergence Zone. This land doesn't tap for any of the colors, so it really restricts how you build your land base, and it's only good if you're flashing in a lot of important stuff at the same time, which you probably won't have the opportunity to do as much. I'd honestly play a basic land so that you're playing your cards more efficiently. I really hope that you found this video super helpful for your next pre-release and draft event at your local game store. If you think you found this information helpful, please consider subbing and let your friends know if you think this will help them, especially if they're new players. In the next video, I'll be going over the uncommon Planeswalkers and finishing the last bit of cards that they're releasing for War of the Spark. If you disagree with any of the grading of these cards, please be sure to let me know because I value your opinion just as much. And I also want to win at my pre-release. I like getting extra packs. I think most people do. I'm planning on building Rakdos zombies for standard, so let me know in the comments if you want to see what deck tech I'm brewing. Let me just say it involves a certain Minotaur of sorts. Thank you so much for watching, appreciate it, and I'll see you next time for your Nerd Fill.